Hello and welcome to the TechGig podcast, folks. I'm your host, Sukriti, and I would like to thank each one of you for tuning in. Guys, World Engineers Day, celebrated every September 15th, serves to appreciate engineers and their contributions to the society. This day also commemorates the birth anniversary of Sir Mokshagundam Visvesvaraya, who is considered as one of the greatest engineers in India. So it's a special day for all you engineers out there. And I thought, why not have a conversation with engineers for you engineers? So, folks, please join me in welcoming our guest for today's episode. I have with me Mr. Madhu Krishnapuram, who's the Vice President of Engineering and Managing Director, India at GoTo, and Chander Damodaran, who is the CTO, Cloud Engineering at Brillio. Welcome to the show, Madhusudan and Chander. I'm so delighted to have both of you here with me. Wishing you a very happy Engineers Day.
Thank you so much, Sukriti. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Sukriti. Happy Engineers Day to all of you.
Thank you so much for joining in. And before we actually go to the main discussion, just tell us about, what do you think about the Engineers Day, how the engineers are positioned in India right now in the current market, and what are your perspectives on the current trends that are flowing? Madhu, we'll begin with you.
Sure. So Engineers Day holds a special place for me. I'm a big fan of Bharat Ratna Sri Mokshagundam Visvesvaraya. His contributions and ideals are an inspiration, not just for an engineer, but for any professional. As far as the positions of engineers in India today is concerned, it's at an interesting inflection point, and I'd like to make it a little controversial. The opportunities for our profession is plentiful. Undoubtedly, we have the capability to leverage this situation and to realize the potential. But I think we are somewhat complacent. We must shake off this perception of complacency and both celebrate the accomplishments of a profession and be ambitious about making a difference to the world we live in. This, to me, is what Engineers Day should stand for and should remind us.
Wonderful. Chandra, what do you think?
Thanks, Sukriti. I think this whole Engineers Day is also something very, very special for me, especially because like Madhu also mentioned, Visvesvaray's contribution to the field of engineering, right, and to what he has done to India. I mean, not just for India. I think he's also celebrated by other countries, and I think there was a brilliant article from your Times group around all the things that he has done. Right? I think so. It's a great honor to celebrate this whole Engineers Day. I think the big part that I would say his ability to instill the spirit of engineering, and to have the number of engineers that we have today that are coming out right from our colleges, and I think we have become like the hub for engineering. Right, I think India has started becoming the hub for engineering, and a lot of things that we have been able to do, not just in IT but in also all the other fields that Madhu mentioned. I think is an important milestone that I would associate with Mr. Visvesvaraya and what how we celebrate the Engineers Day. And I think from a position of engineers and what we are, I think today we have a much more richer diversity of engineers that are graduating, right? From probably what we were before. And I would basically say it's just a significant positive change in our education system, and then the quality of engineers that we are actually getting out today, who are a lot more technical and more, I would say industry centric, right, than what it was before. So that's how I see the position of engineers in 2022 now.
All right. So that was about the current market trends. Madhu, I would, come to you. The role of engineers has evolved over in the past few years, as we all know. Do you think having only an engineering degree is sufficient to survive in the market right now?
Survival is not really the issue. I'd like to replace the word survive with the word thrive, if you will. To thrive in this market, I think three things are essential. To basically have mastery in your profession, to have a passion for what you do, and to have a growth mindset. In that sense, I view an engineering degree as an enabler. It is necessary, but it is definitely not sufficient. To succeed, engineers are expected to embrace kind of a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving, especially given that this is a complex and interconnected world. So I don't think of this as being limited by just an engineering degree or somehow being enabled by something more than just an engineering degree. It's more of a mindset, attitude, and expertise that drives success.
Okay, so I think now it's more about thriving in the market and not just survival. A basic degree can help you survive, but not thrive. Good one. Okay, Chandra, are there any specific skills or a whole skill set that engineers should develop for a bright future?
I'll build on what Madhu spoke. I think it's interesting to see, and this is part of my initial dialogue as well, right? I think there's a fundamental shift in how we are now looking at, the whole scheme of engineers, right? So today, the engineers that we get are people who are not just, learn their trade, right? And it's also about having industry immersion. In fact, a couple of weeks back, I was part of, College Connect, in talking about our industries, and this is part of standard curriculum that they do now, and this is across the board that I'm seeing, right? So what I'm actually seeing is, today's engineers are a lot more, I would say, industry centric, in that sense, their ability to understand, and not just come with theory and background, but more in terms of, practicalities and how do you apply, I think is how I see it. I think Madhu spoke about a couple of interesting points, right? One, I'd kind of break this down into like the three things that Madhu also spoke. I think one would be, the ability to look at and solve problems, right? I think a big part of work today is not to be transactional or kind of chase the tail, right? I think it's about your ability to kind of empathize and look at what is the problem that I'm actually trying to solve, right? And have the big picture, right? I would say that is an important skill that is really required, and this can span across from a grad who's coming out of college and joining into a professional world, or to people who are in the system as well, right? People who have been engineers for the years. I would say a second big skill that I would say, I think is that whole multidisciplinary angle that kind of came in, right? So it's engineering is not about just degree or particular skill, right? It's about your ability to kind of being situationally relevant and playing the role that is required at that point in time, right? And then technical skills, if you kind of look at it, right, I think it's ever evolving. We all, even with a number of years of experience, you have to constantly keep chiseling your to your sword, right? I think you need to constantly keep sharpening your sword. So I think what comes out is your ability to not chase the tail, but kind of look at how trends are evolving, right? What is happening within the industry, what's happening within the technology space, and then kind of building a very strong foundational skills, right, that requires you to constantly keep skilling yourself and reskilling. So I think if I had to summarize this, right, being having the ability to problem solve, kind of looking at being situationally relevant, right, and playing into the context is what is required. And then third, our ability to play into like the multidimensional technical skills and other skills as well, right? I think is going to be the three big things that we should look for, from an engineer's perspective. And I would say just, to give a technical flavor, I would say, the current trends that are out there is primarily around, connected, immersive thinking, right? So metaverse plays a big role, digital twin plays a big role, data fabric, data mesh plays a big role, ethical AI is another area, we are seeing a deluge. So I would say, broadly, these dimensions is what we should be looking for.
All right, engineers, if you're listening, I hope you've made a note of what our speaker has just mentioned. I would now like to move to Madhu. Madhu, do you see, what do you see in the future of engineers, especially in the IT and CS, in the coming time?
I think the future is bright. It's very bright. If you look at IT and CS specifically, those streams have progressed. They've become ubiquitous now. They're part of the operating fabric, if you will, the operating system that powers almost all professions and disciplines. I mean, if you take GoTo, for example, our solutions have over 1 billion people joining meetings, classes, webinars, over 500 million connections to our remote access and support tools. And we are out of the way. It's all to get their jobs done. And what we do is just enable. So I look at IT and CSS enabling innovation. It's providing information at your fingertips, generating new insights every day, and making you think about problems and interact easily with people and do the things that you would like to get done without hindrances, if you will. So I foresee the demand for these professionals only increasing. I mean, we have to keep optimizing for new constraints and enable new solutions. and develop new ways of thinking. And IT and CS and engineering is at the heart of all of that.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. Chandra, I'll move to you. And I think this is the last one for our conversation as well. Sometimes you see that the use of software tools and automation technology has become a threat to engineers' jobs. And do you think it is possible that machines will take over the jobs of engineers? Because I think this is one of the most important aspects that have been creating a buzz and a concern
Yeah.
amongst the entire engineer class, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's a great question, right? Thanks for asking this. I think, see, when, if I just put a time series and basically talk about, a decade back or, even earlier, I think they used to be broadly, one or two tech stacks, and people used to just sit and do either custom code, right? Or there were products that were out there. But I think, especially with the way I think we have evolved, right, and especially post-pandemic, you see a lot more things getting done remote, right? You see a lot more emphasis and push towards digitalization. The whole theme of environmental social governance, right, I think is a big theme today, right? Pretending to becoming net zero, carbon neutral, so on and so forth. So what's basically getting to, and now, you have more bots, you have more, in fact, I think there was a Gartner survey that came in, it talked about more devices connected to the internet than humans, and that I think is going to become a lot more real, right? I think as we keep going. So what does it all translate to? It basically translates to a problem that are becoming a lot more complex. There are a lot more technologies that are out there. So it's just a question of how do you basically bring in when you have a scale and complexity and the problems that start becoming humongous, how do you basically try to solve all of those, right? And that's where I see tools and automation as a way of life, as something that's going to becoming a lot more pragmatic, right? In terms of how do you, if you have to drive scale and if you have to drive predictability, I think it's a question of humans coming in and playing the role of driving that strategy, right? Putting together the blueprint, but eventually you need somebody to repeat and scale this. And that's where I see tools and automation complementing what an engineer does today, right? That's how I see this world evolving. So it's not really a threat. I would basically say all the mundane jobs and routine jobs are the ones that needs to be automated, so that you free up the bandwidth and energy, and humans have this power of thinking, right? Our ability to solve things. So that's where I think when you correlate back this to an engineer's mindset, which even Madhu was talking, I think it's a question of, do you have the right attitude, and do you have the right aptitude to basically go and solve problems? I think that's when you think of it, you're able to then solve higher order problems and not focus on routine stuff, right? And that could be where we could look at tools and automation to solve for us.
Thanks, Chandra. I think you've beautifully comprehended this for us. And when it comes about, when we particularly quote it as machines replacing humans, that is something that I think is in extreme possible, because the decision making in the end would lie in our hands, no matter how much machines can work for us. The final decision making, the intellect quotient that we talk about, still is in human hands. So thank you so much for that. I would want both of you to give me a wonderful closing remark, as you've wonderfully crafted the entire conversation for me. Madhu, what do you think? How did the conversation go? And what would you wish our engineers today?
Thanks, Sukriti. This was a really short and sweet conversation, and I couldn't agree more with everything that Chandra just mentioned, and he did it far better than I ever could. So that's also. That said, to me, it's just amazing to see what information technology has enabled over the last couple of decades. I think we're kind of living through history, and we should recognize the moment. The complexity and scale of this accomplishment is mind-boggling. So on this occasion, what I'd like to remind myself and my fellow professionals is that with such power, it becomes our responsibility to innovate and to act in a manner that makes our communities greener, safer, and better. That would truly be like a fitting tribute to the man whose birthday we celebrate as Engineers Day. That's it.
Thank you, Madhu. I think that was the perfect end to a conversation. Thank you so much, Chandra.
I would second what Madhu said. I think for all of us to give the, I think the recognition, the credibility to what Vishweshwar started off with. I think it's an important part that we all imbibe that spirit of that entrepreneurship, the spirit of basically going and getting things done, right? I think, and his examples of all the things that he has done, within India and otherwise, right? I think is a testimony to that. And as long as us as engineers, and I think our, as we keep evolving, right? I think our market dynamics are changing, everything is changing. It's about adaptability to the new world, right? It's adaptability to being situationally relevant to what is in the context of, the engineer's mindset. So that's where I would say, have this, curiosity, have this spirit of entrepreneurship, have a sense of purpose to what you want to be doing, and just keep at it, right? I think that's the most befitting tribute that we can give to the greatest man that we've seen as an engineer. So that's what I would say, and happy Engineers Day to all of us.
Thank you, Chander. So this actually brings us to the end of our episode and the session. I think we have some beautiful and some great insights shared by both of you, and it has been a very delightful conversation for me. Thank you so much, Madhu and Chander, for this amazing knowledge sharing session on Engineers Day, and sharing your thoughts and your perspectives on how our co-professionals who are working in this arena and are striving to thrive in a better and a more innovative world can actually do their best. Thank you so much for that. Audience, thank you once again for tuning in. Hope you had some great learning from our guests today. Wishing you all a very happy Engineers Day once again. Stay tuned to TechGig for all the latest tech updates and happenings.